Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Today's race finds us on familiar soil, albeit with an old-school twist. Silverstone, the home of the British Grand Prix, has been the site of some of the greatest racing the world has ever seen over the years. And although the track we race on today hasn't been around since about the mid-2000s era, it is still one of the most highly acclaimed here on iRacing and a fan favorite for drivers and fans alike. Hello everyone and welcome to the Radical Racing Challenge, brought to you here live on Apex Racing TV. My name is DJ Clark. Joined with me doing production and directing is Samuli Kumho. And we talked a little bit last week about how these radicals are going to be feeling right at home on this circuit. Obviously, the jump from Oulton Park over to Silverstone. And with this old school layout around here, it is sure to present some fantastic racing action. Philip Vandenherk, the #1 machine, as you see on your screen, coming down the old start-finish straightaway that exists between Woodcote and Copse. Going to have to keep that in mind over the course of the racing today, as that is a little bit of a switch around. But Vandenherk is up at the front of the field by a healthy margin there, to the tune of about a half a second right now over Robert Woodward. Kansas Gentry, Stuart Geddes, and Johan Larsson round out your top 5. Some familiar names continuing to work their way across the start-finish line right now. Here is Sejas in the #15 machine, the Iberian driver, trying to see what they are able to do, as that was David Valero able to put in a time that was good enough for 5th fastest. Still waiting for a couple of times to come onto the board here, as we've got about a minute and a half left to go, still in qualifying, a 2-lap solo qualifying session here for all of these drivers. Robert Woodward right now working his way down through Luffield, that ever-challenging double, almost triple apex right-hander. Always tricky to try to figure out where you want to get on the throttle, not pick up too much oversteer there coming out of, or understeer rather, coming out of the corner. Woodward's going to cross over the line there. I believe his 2 laps are done, just trying to get in a little bit more time. It looked like Tony Dibden, the UK&I driver, able to put in a time that was good enough for 4th best with a time of 1:43.840. Here comes David Valero, though, coming now out of Club, bringing his way onto the old portion of the track. About 2/3 of this track remains exactly how it is today. This is the section that's a little bit different. The turn here coming up through Abbey, the Chicane, and then the run down the farm straight into Bridge, and then down into Priory, and then the track will reform what we sort of know it to be going down into Brooklands, Luffield, and Woodcote. Now brings it on through. Only about 10 seconds left to go here in qualifying, and then we will get ready to go here for a 14-lap race around this circuit as Valero tries to run to the line, but it looks like he's not going to get there in time as the checkered flag flies for qualifying, and that means we are ready for our 14-lap race here for the Radical Racing Challenge. Lining up in pole position as we get everything set and ready. It is going to be Philip Vandenherk, followed by Robert Woodward. Then it's Kansas Gentry and Tony Dibden. Stuart Geddes rounds out your top 5 with David Valero and Johan Larsson in 7th. Mattia Frersian is going to be in P8, followed by Sebastian Konovenyaksi. Then it's going to be Andy Bootland in 10th. 11th place will be Luca Alasa. Then it's Lawrence Reagan. Cesar Sejas in 13th. Chris Elson will be 14th. Stefan Boonsman will be in the 15th position, followed by Daniel White in 16th. Arnaud Van Houten will be 17th, followed by David Hugerland. Then it's Javier Velasco and Alexandre Vignon will round out your 20-car field. That's right, we've got 20 of these fantastic Radical Racing drivers out and on track, ready to be able to get their way around. We wait for everybody to form up here as we take a look at track conditions. Zero wind coming pretty much out of here, only 2 miles an hour worth of wind. It is just past 9 a.m. virtual standard time on April 1st. Pretty good track temperatures right now, about 78 degrees Fahrenheit, 80 degrees Fahrenheit on the track as it is. I don't have that conversion to Celsius off the top of my head, so you'll have to excuse me there about that. 54% humidity, so that is going to be plenty enough for these drivers to be able to get their way around. A standing start here for the Radical Racing Challenge as we wait for about 5 more drivers to make their way onto the grid, and then we will be ready to go for this 14-lap feature event. Great views here being provided by Samuli and the iRacing blimp right now. You really get a sense of just how much on the back foot some of those drivers farther back down in the field are going to be starting off on. They literally have to be starting around the curve of Woodcote, angling their tires a little bit as they go. But now it sounds like the lights are starting to come on as here we go, and there goes the flag. We are racing here in Silverstone. Talk about a getaway there from Robert Woodward, already challenging Philip Vandenherk at the front of the field, and it looks like Woodward is going to have the lead by the time they go into Copse. He's going to hold it out there around the outside, a little bit of side-by-side there farther in the back between Gentry and Dibden as they try to line themselves out. Vandenherk trying to be able to take a little bit of an entry here, going down into Maggots. Is he going to back off, or is he going to have to power his way ahead? It's going to be the latter there as Vandenherk makes it work around the outside before they get to Beckett's, and now they fall into single file order here coming out of Chapel and down the ever-famous Hanger Straight. But all of that side-by-side action in front is allowed for Tony Dibden and Kansas Gentry to close in on the back of the pack, particularly there Tony Dibden thinking about trying to make a little bit of a move on Robert Woodward going up into Stowe, but that's not going to play itself out as now they go down the little bit of the hill here into Vale. We'll have to see if anybody tries to take a little bit of a late diving maneuver, maybe a defensive line there from Robert Woodward. Farther back of the field, this is Stuart Geddes and David Valero. Valero there in the number 7, trying to challenge around the outside of the corner as they now come and work their way onto what is now the pit lane straightaway here, working their way towards Abbey. Now they're all going to fall into single file order. Philip Vandenherk doing what we've expected out of Philip Vandenherk many a time, streaking away at the front of the field, as there you get a quick view of your number 1 leader. We may not see too much of him over the course of this race as he has a tendency to absolutely check out after about the first lap or so. Some good battles farther there in the back as we continue to close in here, getting ready to come to the close of the first of 14 laps here from Silverstone. The top 5, top 6 starting to space themselves out. Vandenherk already has a gap of about 1.1 seconds as we look back on the Racing Pointless driver of Robert Woodward. He's going to have a little bit of a closer gap between himself and Tony Dibden, with Dibden holding into about now 9/10 of a second as that Dibden's going off there through Copse. Another driver off in the background as well. I think White and Bootland may have both had problems there trying to come through it. Dibden's going to have to now put up the defense here from Stuart Geddes from behind as he will have lost his space to Kansas Gentry, the American driver in the number 8 machine. making their way now onto the hangar straight. This is where that draft is really going to come into play, and you're going to hear me talk about the 1 second margin. That's really where you start to lose touch with that draft. That's where you need to try to keep yourself within if you want to have a chance of being able to hold in behind. And it looks like that's exactly what Tony Dibden was able to do on the back of Kansas Gentry, keep that gap under a second. That is Kansas Gentry getting it all kinds of sideways there, coming down through the club chicane as now they work their way around the corner, and that's going to be Gentry trying to hold off to the best of his ability. Dibden trying to put some pressure to the inside here. They're going to be down the run into Abbey. That's going to be Dibden on the preferred line. Outbreaks his competitor, and that Dibden is up into third for the moment. He got the exit of the corner there a little bit wrong, able to gather it up back under him, but Geddes is going to keep some pressure in from behind now on the back of Stuart Gentry as Geddes and Valero have been able to catch up to the back of this battle. This is, again, all the battle for that final podium position in third. Dibden leading Gentry, leading Geddes, leading Valero right now. As they come down through Luffield, you can see the multitude of lines that are really taken through that corner. Everybody fanning themselves out there a little bit and starting to separate themselves out a little bit. I wonder if the aero wash could have maybe come into play there a little bit as they complete lap number 2. Vandenherk setting the fastest lap up in front of the field with a 1:42.047. Everybody else pretty much far behind that as we got a couple of drivers doing a little bit of off track and a big around there. That's Valero. I think he caught a little bit of the curb and hard contact there to the barriers outside of Copps. He's going to try to get that number 7 machine gathered up back under him, but there was some pretty significant damage to the right-hand side of that car. And it looks like he is indeed going to take a tow back down into pit lane. Let's take a look at the replay there of exactly what happened. Let's ride on board with the Iberian driver, puts the power down, gets onto that AstroTurf, and you can see the car just squirming underneath him, trying to break away, and that is a surefire sign of just pushing a little bit too hard, and that's really one of the problems you can experience there. You can see the clip on the front of that car really coming back to bite. As we take a look back up at that battle right now, this is now Stuart Geddes as Dibden has been able to check out a little bit at the front of the field. Remember, we saw Kansas Gentry having a little bit of a bad run as he came through Copps as well, so that has allowed for Dibden to streak away up at the front of the field, but the American driver here of Gentry trying to close in behind Stuart Geddes as they now fly down into Bridge and into Priory. Trying to close that gap here a little bit. It holds at about 5/6 of a second in between Geddes and Gentry. Larson holding in behind there. Johan doing a good job to be able to hold on to the back of this group. They've got to be a little bit careful as Farazin there is not too far behind in the 7th place position, and he's bringing along Yaski as they go. So this could be a little bit of a run, and indeed here comes Konovanyaski getting the move to the inside. I think that was maybe a little bit assisted there potentially. Well, maybe not, as Larson is going to, or Farazin is going to continue to fight that along to the best of his abilities, at least hold in behind here at this point. Looked a little bit slow there coming off of the line for Konovanyaski, but he's going to be able to keep things together. Farazin trying to hold in there behind in that number 13 machine. That's a very impressive performance. Remember, these numbers are auto-ordered as a result of where you find yourself out on track in terms of high rating. And so if you've got a lower number like Mattia here in the number 13 and he's performing very well, that's going to be a significant gain to him, and it's going to be a significant gain of I-rating, which is really the treat that all of these drivers are competing for out there today. But we ride on board with that number 13 machine as he gets onto the binders, going down into Vale right now, bringing his way through Club. This is another one of the little mini straights here that you're going to be able to pick up some draft, but not nearly as significant as it would be on the hangar straight itself. Starting to spread themselves out a little bit more here at this point. Vanyaski holding on to that 7th place position, but good run there, very good run coming up and under Bridge for Farazin, as now they're going to hold into the line, a little bit of a tighter line there, going through Priory, just trying to reduce some of the air watch to the front of that wing again, and now here comes the Italian driver starting to put some more pressure onto the back of Vanyaski up ahead of him, trying to see what he is able to do. Here they come right now, coming out of left field and through Woodcote. Lost a little bit of time right now, but that's not going to be of too much concern. We still have plenty of running left to go in this race. 10 laps to go, as a matter of fact. And a little bit off the line there coming through Cobbs, but he'll be able to get out of the throttle and get back into it without much significant damage there to the car. As we take a look farther back in the field, this is Daniel White right now in a very, very fierce battle with Luca Alesa right up ahead of him, and they've got to watch out behind. Andy Bootland not too far behind this battle as well. All of that battling up ahead with Conor Vinyasky certainly has been allowing these drivers to close in. The gaps in this field are very, very tight right now as they try to be able to get their way around and see what they are able to do. Working their way now up through the corner, trying to see if we're going to see any movement there. There was a little bit of moving and shaking behind. I believe that was Andy Bootland. You saw big lockup coming into the corner there from Bootland, and that's going to be Bootland around, getting it wrong, going down into club. He's going to have to spin the rear tires. Excuse me, that was Daniel White that got that wrong. Andy Bootland, the car that was able to take advantage from him from behind, and so that was a certainly very rough run for White. He's now going to find himself directly behind Lawrence Reagan up ahead of him, and Dave Hoogerland behind. So he's going to find himself slotted out in a battle here. And that's going to be a little bit of tough running for him. A very unfortunate situation, just locking the brakes up, going down into club, and that was enough to send that number 11 car spinning around through the corners. As right now we keep our eyes focused on Daniel White as there's a lockup up front from Lawrence Reagan. Reagan's going to allow for White to be able to go on by, and now Hoogerland is going to be the one clearly in his sights as he tries to push up ahead. The Mid-South driver in the number 16 as they come out of Woodcote right now, bringing that car around. We already talked about how difficult of a corner Luffield is in any machinery, and especially here in these radicals, a very, very tricky job to be able to get them through that corner without having too many problems. But right now, Dave Hoogerland starting to close in a little bit more. Is he going to be able to keep that run going through Maggots and Beckett's? Or are we going to find, oh, there's a car off. That's Daniel White with the second mistake of this lap alone. He is finding himself out and into the barriers there, almost into the barriers, rather. I'm not entirely sure what happened to him. I just looked up to see that number 11 machine streaking off into the gravel trap. So we'll have to see if we can pull up a replay, as here it is indeed. Watching right now. Now, this is the run coming down into Maggots. I'm wondering here if he just clipped a little bit too much curb. That's exactly what it is. Just got a little bit too much of that curb on the inside, and that was enough to be able to send that number 11 machine spinning around as he now has to gather everything back up under him and try to see where he is able to go from here, as he now finds himself all the way down in 15th. As we're going to jump a little farther up in the field, this is the battle for P4 right now. Stuart Geddes and Kansas Gentry. This battle has not subsided by any stretch of the imagination as they continue to go along here at this point. Geddes leading the way by about 0.7 of a second, but I will say that gap has ebbed and flowed over the course of this race. We've really and truly seen it come down to just a couple of mere tenths of a second at different points where Gentry's looked a little bit more powerful, and then Geddes has been able to stretch it away a little bit more. So it's a definite game of give and take here at this point. We'll have to see as, again, under braking, coming through Maggots and Beckett's, this is one of the areas that I've noticed that Kansas Gentry seems to have a little bit more speed. Now, if he's able to keep that gap up, but unfortunately just loses it a little bit on the exit there of Chapel. I was going to say if he was able to keep up that outright speed, he may be able to find himself closing in on the back of that number 4 and take advantage of the draft going down the hangar straight, but it just didn't look like he was really able to do that here at this point. He's going to have to keep himself together a little bit more and try to be able to see if he's able to get a maneuver done at a different point in the track, or maybe just be able to get things a little bit better next time around. Loses a little bit more time there on the exit of Club as now they fly down into Abbey. Again, losing a little bit more time here. It looks like Gentry may just be a little bit outclassed, and he's able to take advantage of a few corners on the circuit, but Geddes doing a fantastic job of trying to build that gap over a full second, break the full draft range, and get himself away here at this point. as they continue to work. Crossing over the line is our leader, going to be starting on lap number 8. We are already halfway down here in this Radical Racing Challenge, live from Silverstone, from the virtual Silverstone, I should say, as they continue to go. And Geddes has done exactly what he needs to do here at this point over Kansas Gentry. That gap was tickling closer to a full second there, but let's see. We remember in the early stages of the Maggots and Beckett's complex, Gentry was really able to close in a little bit more and try to keep that a little bit better. Doesn't look like he's gaining all that much time here. Indeed, he's losing a little bit. He's able to gain some coming through Beckett's right now, and it's going to come down to 0.6 of a second as that number 8 machine gets a little bit of a better run, but I don't think it's going to be enough to pull him in close enough by the time they go into Stowe Corner right now. Indeed, flicking their way to the right now. The gap hovering at about 0.8 of a second, but a mistake in front. That is Dibden. That is Tony Dibden, the number 3, currently in 3rd place, all by his lonesome, I have to assume, making a mistake coming up through Stowe. My goodness gracious, just getting it wrong. That's going to find him falling all the way back down into 7th place. Let's go ahead and take a look at a replay here. As we said, I'm pretty sure this was just by his lonesome, and that number 3 carried too much speed into the corner. The rear tires just absolutely screaming for grip. They were not able to hold on to it, and he had to spin himself around, and he now finds himself down in 7th place behind Johan Larsson and Sebastian Kone-Vanyaski right now. So they are going to have to find themselves in a very close battle with what we have to presume is a faster car coming up from behind. And Ferrazen there, not too far back as well. So if these guys get into a little bit of a battle, we could see a massive fight taking place here for the top 5 as they run. But as the leader runs right now, he has already crossed over here, working on lap number 9. As these battles continue to fire off, here is Johan Larsson that we watch right now. Yaski behind him, trying to see what he is able to do. Runs a little bit wide there on the exit of Copse, but I think that was just a result, a little bit of the aero wash, and certainly that number 4 machine was able to keep everything gathered up back up under him and keep plenty of speed. Now as we keep an eye here, this is going to be a massive draft fest if these drivers are able to get the exit out of Beckett's right as they come onto the hangar straight right now. It's going to be about 4.5 of a second, the gap between Larsson and Kone-Vanyaski. Then it's going to be about another 0.3 of a second, let's call it, between themselves and Tony Dibden. Not quite close enough to be able to pull in and make a full-on assault here, but enough to be able to fill those rear-view mirrors as much as possible and scare the ever-loving daylights out of those drivers in front of you and maybe produce a little bit of an error potentially in the closing stages of this race. That very well could be what takes place here, as now they work their way out of club, trying to see what they're going to be able to get. It looks like Kone-Vanyaski trying to push a little bit more here, closing down on Larsson, up ahead of him, down onto the binders into the Abbey chicane. As these drivers try to sort themselves out, this gap just keeps compressing and compressing and compressing as it continues to get tighter around here. Now they make the fly up into Priory, and here comes the move for Kone-Vanyaski, and Dibden's going to try to follow him on through as there they go to the inside of Larsson, but that's going to be a spin out of Kone-Vanyaski, and he is going to loop it around to the inside there of Luffield, and he will have to start at the back of the pack, and that has been the story here today. Drivers getting it wrong on their own. My goodness, I have not seen this many little mini mistakes taking place over the course of the race in a long time. This old school Silverstone circuit absolutely catching these drivers out. I'll be interested to talk to a few of them after the race to see, as we've got another one. That's Stefan Bundesmann having a problem there coming through Copse, and that in turn is going to put Sebastian Kone-Vanyaski offline as well, as I think that was a little bit of incident fixation there for him, as he saw Bundesmann just having a problem and couldn't really keep his eyes off that incident. As now we focus a little bit farther up in the field. Andy Bootland closing in here on the back of Luca Elsa, trying to see what he is able to get. Bootland going to try to chuck that car around the outside there of Stowe, and he is going to be able to get it done. Slides in line. The Italian behind him going to try to see if there's going to be a little bit of an attack here going down into Vale. That's not going to play itself out, and it looks like Bootland's going to have that position for now, and maybe even another one, as Ferrazen there up ahead of him in the 7th place car. car, the number 13, isn't too far up the road, so there could be an attack here for Andy Bootland as well. We may be seeing, we've heard drivers talk about over the course of the season, the tires are a little bit more sensitive here in these Radical SR10s than they were in their earlier predecessor of the SR8, and you've got to nurse them to the end of the race. And of course, Silverstone known as a very, very abrasive circuit when it comes to tire wear. So I wonder if we're starting to see some drivers struggle here with that very tire wear as we work on lap number 11 right now. The leader already making his way onto the hangar straight right now, which means there's only 4 laps left to go in this race. So if you are Andy Bootland and you want to be able to get this move done on Mattia Ferentzen up ahead of him, you have got to get it moving pretty quick here as they now fly their way through Cops. Everyone trying to keep a good line together and see what they're able to do. We've got another driver off and back. This is Daniel White. This looks like on the exit there of Brooklands. Not entirely sure what happened there to him. I wonder if that could have maybe been some contact. There were a couple of drivers wandering around him. But we check back in on this battle for P7 right now. Andy Bootland trying to see what he is able to get done. And Ferentzen there doing a little bit of weaving. I think the Italian knows the pressure is coming from behind from this UKNI driver in the number 6. And indeed trying to force his nose up into the inside of Stowe. It's not often that you see that late of a maneuver work, but certainly tried to go for it here today. Is Vale, and now into Club they go. And Bootland doing a fantastic job of keeping up the pressure there. Ferentzen looks like he ran a little bit wide on the exit of Club, but that may have been intentional. You can run a little bit wider there. It's one of the great things about this Silverstone circuit is there are so many different lines that you are really able to take around here. As we can't also count out the 9th place driver here, Luca Alesa, as Luca has certainly been able to close in that number 12 to the back of Andy Bootland, and Bootland running a little bit wide there through Priory, certainly opening up the door here for Alesa, as this could be a little bit of a good battle potentially leading into the final part of this race with 3 laps remaining here for these drivers. As they now cross over the start-finish line, all of them separated by just about a second here at this point for Ferentzen, Bootland, and Alesa, as now they come down into Cops, and it looks like that 9th placed car, the number 12, carrying some good speed. Certainly Andy Bootland thinks so, as he did a little bit of ducking and diving there, coming down into Maggots, making that work to the best of his abilities, as right now they come through the corners, trying to see what he is going to be able to have, as he works his way out right now. Again, it's going to be Alesa here in that prime position, under 0.3 of a second as they make their way down the hangar straight. Now, I don't think that's going to be quite close enough to send a full move down up into the inside, and indeed, it looks like Bootland's going to be able to hold on to that 8th place position for now, but an only one errant mistake. That's all it takes for these drivers to find themselves locked in a very, very fierce battle here as they come now down through Club, working their way on the run to Priory. They separate themselves out a little bit, and Andy Bootland now appears to be in the driver's seat, so to speak. He's gotten that gap down on Ferentzen down to about 0.4 of a second. He loses a little bit of time coming through the Abbey chicane, though, and now they're going to find themselves about equidistant between Ferentzen, Bootland, and Alesa, as now they come into Priory right now, working through the left-hander, trying to see as they concertina just a little bit down into these corners, and it looks like there that Alesa's lost a little bit of time. It's Bootland that now is going to have a little bit of a good run, but is that all going to come to naught? We've seen on the exit here of Lovefield a little bit of understeer can absolutely throw you out, but we're going to ride on board with Andy Bootland now. This is the best run we've seen from this number 6 driver. Is he going to be brave enough to attempt a move going down into Cops? No, he is not, but there's Ferentzen, goes a little bit wide. Andy Bootland recognizes his opportunity. He is going to fly his way to the inside. Is he going to slam the nose? Yes, he is. Move Andy Bootland up into 7th place. A well thought out maneuver there from Andy. He recognized the opportunity when it was arisen to him, but we've got to check back in on the battle for P3 right now. Geddes and Gentry, as they have been doing this entire race long, are now locked in step with each other, trying to be able to get on by the American. Kansas Gentry trying to get by Stuart Geddes up ahead of him in that number 10 as they come down through Club right now, trying to see what they're able to do. Getting onto the loud pedal on the exit of the corner, it looks like Geddes has bought himself a little bit of breathing room here for the moment. But now as they come out of, or down into Abbey, rather, it looks like Gentry's going to try to hold on a little bit more, but he's losing time here at this point. He lost about a half a tenth there coming up and through Bridge. He can't afford to do that because as your leader, Philip Vandenherk, crosses over the start-finish line, the white flag waves from Barney the Flagman, and it will be awaiting these two drivers here in just a few moments' time. They come out of the final corner right now, working their way towards the line. Robert Woodward crosses over the line in P2, or Stuart Geddes crosses over the line in P3, and then come these two, Gentry and Dibden. Geddes and Dibden, rather, as they come now through Cops, trying to see what they are able to get. Geddes doing a great job of pulling that advantage here at this point. The gap is up to about 0.5 of a second as they come through Maggots and Beckett's, trying to see if they're going to be able to close down a little bit more here in the dying stages of this race. First and second aren't really up for grabs. They're not up for conversation, but this third place certainly is. You can almost feel Kansas Gentry pushing himself ahead, willing that car forward, doing everything he can to try to get himself up into that podium position. And with a wide run there from Geddes, that could open up the opportunity. Here they come down into Vale. It's going to be a battle of the late breakers. Geddes holds off Gentry for now as they flick their way through Club. It's still Stuart Geddes holding on to the advantage right now. Now making the run towards Abbey. Gentry's time is quickly running out. He needs to make this move sooner rather than later if he wants to be able to claim a podium position here. Comes down through the Vale chicane. Nothing there to do for Gentry, but we've got to focus back in on Philip Vandenherk because he comes out of Woodcote right now and takes victory, the number one, rightfully where it should be. Robert Woodward going to cross over the line behind him. A fantastic drive for the Racing Pointless driver. Massive, massive credit there to him. Meanwhile, that battle we were following with Stuart Geddes and Kansas Gentry, it looks like it's going to end the same way that it went in, and they are going to be in third and fourth. A fantastic drive there from Stuart Geddes to be able to maintain that behind him. A little bit of a close battle here with Johan Larsson, Andy Bootland, Mattia Ferrezen, and Luca Elisa coming across the line. They will cross over in 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th, respectively. Sebastian Kona-Vinyavski, unfortunately, is going to come home 10th. He was fighting up almost in the podium positions early on in the race, but a spin taking him around here. Stefan Bundesman, as he's going to come out of Woodcote right now, crosses over the line to come home in 11th. Behind him, the American of Dave Hoogerland is going to cross over in 12th. And it looks like Cesar Fernando Sejas is the next driver to take the checkered flag in 13th. Reagan behind him as we wait for Chris Elson and Daniel White, the last two drivers here on the lead lap, to cross over. But an absolutely fantastic race as there is Daniel, your final finisher here today. And a good run for him. Kept his nose out of trouble and finished exactly where he started. So a very, very good run there for them as we wait to see if we're going to have any drivers popping up here into the interview booth to join us. Just a quick note that you should most certainly join us next week as we continue our tour of the greatest British racing courses in all of iRacing, and we head over to Brands Hatch next time out. That will be next Friday, February 24th. As there you've got a couple of drivers working their way back down into pit lane, namely your leader, Philip Vandenherk. Again, just a commanding drive from Philip up at the front of the field. Absolutely remarkable there from him to be able to pull that out and pull that away when he needed to. As there you see your final finishing order: Philip Vandenherk, Robert Woodward, Stuart Geddes, Kansas Gentry, Tony Dibden, Johan Larsson, Andy Bootland, Mattia Ferrezen, Luca Elisa, Sebastian Kone-Vinyavski, Stefan Bundesman, Dave Hoogerland, Cesar Fernando Sejas, Lawrence Reagan, Chris Elson, Daniel White, Alexandre Vignon, Javier Velasco, David Valero, and Arnaud Van Houten rounding out your 20-car field here today. And, well, folks, unfortunately, it doesn't look like we are going to have any drivers that are popping up here to interview with us, which is a little bit unfortunate. I would have very much enjoyed to have talked with them and gotten a little bit of a sense of what they were thinking out on that track. But a very good race today. We thank you so much for joining us here on Apex Racing TV. Again, my name is DJ Clark with Samuli Kumo, working behind the scenes as director and producer. It's been an absolute pleasure to bring you the racing action here today. And until we see you on the track, thanks for watching.